What is up, team? Coach Des here with your knowledge bomb for the week. Happy mother freaking, what's today? Wednesday. Happy mother freaking knowledge bomb. Okay, so a couple of team announcements. We got some new people that'll be onboarding this week. So just like you, when you were brand new to this whole process, you were scared, you didn't know what to think. You started to question yourself, but other people came in and said, congratulations, welcome to the team. So make sure you take some time to do that in our general channel for a lot of our new people this week. All right, so for our knowledge bomb, I've been having a lot of coaching calls with a lot of you, and while most of us are doing some light tracking and making sure that we're navigating either our calorie surplus, maintenance, or our calorie deficit, portions need to be a part of the equation, and this is why. So if you're noticing that over a couple weeks span, you're not seeing a whole lot of changes, and you're starting to ask me like, hey, Des, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything correctly, because success is in the details. We don't need to scrutinize these things, but we need to be aware of them, right? Because success is in the details and success leaves clues. Portioning is one of those things that I think is incredibly helpful for you all to wrap your heads around. Now, for some of you, you are using a scale, and that's perfectly okay. For most, I don't think it's going to be necessary, but I do want you to start measuring out some things to make sure that the way that you are treating your eye is accurate. Okay. And the reason why that's accurate is because I want to teach you skills that you can do beyond this program so that you, for the most part, can go to a restaurant, go to a friend's house, have someone else cook your meal and be okay and knowing what you're actually going to be hungry for. Okay. And this is how this process works. So first and foremost, protein, and this is going to be with the use of our hand. So generally speaking, your palm is going to be about 3 to 4 ounces. So to a wide variety of people, that'll almost be about 20 to 30 grams. Each of your meals should be about 20 to 30 grams. Your 20 gram protein goal is going to be bare minimum with each meal. The reason why we're doing that is because we are doing a great deal on the strength and conditioning side to help you sustain and gain lean mass. The way that you build muscle is making sure very, very low level that your protein intake for each meal is going to be 20 grams. For most of you, 3 meals a day is going to give us about 60 grams. That's still relatively low. So if you can go on to the higher end of 4, maybe even 5 ounces, that's something that's going to be really helpful. So that'll bump you up towards 30 to 40 grams. And in most cases, we're all working on different strategies of how to do that. And it's really relative specifically to you, but this is where we can start. So ask questions if you have some inquiries or some feedback on this during our coaching calls. The next thing is fats. So there's 2 ways to go about it. So generally, your thumb is going to be about a tablespoon. Some things you might want to do next time with your peanut butter is to say like, all right, let me measure out an actual tablespoon and let me also compare it to the size of my thumb. In most cases, this 1 tablespoon, is going to be about 15 grams of fat. There's a reason behind this, because if you're just getting a huge whopping thing of peanut butter and throwing it in your smoothie and then charting it in MyFitnessPal as 1 tablespoon, it's likely about 3. So if we do that math at almost 45 grams of fat, for those that have seen this already, 45 times, so 1 gram, let me get my calculator as we're talking about this. So 1 gram of fat is going to be 9 calories. All right, so we might be thinking in the grand scheme, like, is it that much? Well, because success is in the details, we need to be aware of them. So let's just say you got like a heaping tablespoon, and it's actually 3 tablespoons. So that's going to be 3 times 15, which is 45. So 45 times 9 is 405 calories. Again, we're going back to the details, and it's like, like I feel like for the last 4 to 5 weeks, like my body's been pretty stable. I wonder what's going on. Well, let's take a look at some of the details of what has gotten you there. And that's why this is important, because we're unaccounting for in this case. So if just the 1 tablespoon at 15 grams times 9 is 135 minus the 405 that we just calculated, there's almost 275 calories that are unaccounted for. And if you're doing that with each meal, then it's like, oh, I'm supposed to be working within my deficit, but now I'm finding that I'm probably eating a bit more of 500 calories above. And so these details are really, really important. Okay. We don't need to scrutinize it. We need to take a look at it as information. Now that we have the information, what's the feedback? What do we need to do with that? And on the other end, your index finger is going to be about a teaspoon. Okay. And that's going to give us about 5 grams of fat. Going down into our carb sources are going to be relative to what is going on. In most cases, we do want to boost your whole grain consumption. We do want to boost the amount of like the plant proteins, like the plant protein pastas or things like that. We do want to limit the amount of refined grain that we get. Again, that's the 20%. It's like we go to a friend's house and they're having pasta and it's refined grain. Like, okay, whatever. We can still practice portions. All right. So just from the standpoint of emphasizing whole grain carbohydrates or emphasizing things that are to their natural source, corn, potatoes, even just rice, this is the way this breaks down. So a cup is about the size of your fist. Again, if you want to match this up, go ahead and get a cup of quinoa or a cup of rice in the future, level it out, pour it on the plate, and then measure your fist. Like, all right, is this about a cup? Okay, cool. That's going to give us, relative to the type of carbohydrate, about 30 to 45 grams of carbs. Okay. On the other end, half cup portion is going to be about like if your fist was facing you, going to be about here. Or another way to think about it, just down the middle, however you want to look at that. Again, because success is in the details, take some time to measure out half a cup and see like, all right, does that actually match up with my fist? Don't actually like punch it down on the plate, but it's something that you can actually use. Again, going back to this, if you're kind of just eyeing things and you don't feel really good about your portioning and saying like, okay, this is about a cup, I like to think of this as almost leaving not so much calories on the table, but leaving some money on the table because we're not really aware of what we're actually portioning out with our plates, okay? Now, the last thing is our fruit and veg, our color. There's two ways to go about this. So if we look at like our salad type items or things that are higher volume, watermelon, stuff like that, we're looking at 2 handfuls, so about almost 2 cups, more or less. The reason why that's important is because the stomach does not count calories, but it does count volume. So for most of us, if we are having, 2 meals and we got to stretch it out a little bit, volume is going to be one thing that's going to help us feel like we're eating enough throughout the day. Same thing with your calorie deficit, same thing with maintenance, and honestly too, same thing with your calorie surplus, but on the opposite end, we're probably going to have to do things that are lower volume so that you can consume more. And a couple of you are actually on that type of program. So if that is you and you have questions about it, let's make sure that we talk about that during our coaching calls. All right, so we're looking at anywhere, again, depending on the type of fruit or veg, anywhere from about 5 to 15 grams of fiber. You'll see here that I'm giving a lot of our team members feedback based off of their fiber content. From a female perspective, the lowest level that we want is 25 grams. From a male perspective, we want 35 grams. Again, I think to a larger degree, everyone can be able to be doing 35 to 40 grams. It does cost you it does cause you rather to be a bit more intuitive and to plan these meals out, but that's where this comes into play. Now that you have the knowledge base, we have to apply it, okay? So this is going to give us about 5 to 15 grams, depending on the type of fruit or veg. On the other end, a cup is going back to where we have with our carbs. So this is like your cooked veg and whatnot. Like, again, we're trying to concentrate on volume, and this will provide you with a bit more of an idea of what this looks like from a fiber standpoint. Okay, so we're not trying to scrutinize any of this information. We're trying to use it as what it is, and that's info. And now we have to apply it. So as you're portioning out your meals, as you're tracking some of your food, even if you're more of on a mindful eating program where you're not tracking but you're being aware, try to see how this maps out. If you've been navigating this process and you're like 4 to 6 weeks into seeing some change and you're like, hey, I wonder if I can do more, maybe we're also just looking at your portions right now. Because for a lot of you, we're taking your body progress pics, we're taking different metrics to make sure that we're all on track. And all of you are absolutely on track. However, for those that are like, you know what, should I be like doing more? Like, what should I be doing? Maybe taking a look at this detail as well. All right, so let me know if you have questions in our coaching calls. Again, we're using this all as information because success is in the details, and you already know it by now. Success leaves clues. Okay, bye.